Hey everybody, welcome to the Rooted Asian American Youth Ministry Roundtable. This is part 2 of a series that we started last time on a season of discernment and looking into the youth ministry job application world. I'll be your host today, Justin, from Houston, Texas. And today I got the opportunity to serve with some really good friends of mine working in the Asian American spaces. With me are two friends, colleagues, theologians, researchers, just all awesome people all around. They would make my top 10 any day. I'm going to go with Dorothy. Why don't you introduce yourself to our great audience?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Dorothy Lau here, Youth Director at the Chinese Bible Church of Maryland in Rockville, Maryland. And in the DMV, that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia region, not the Department of Motor Vehicles, because here we call that DMVA. And something about me, I guess, is I've been wearing glasses since the 6th grade, and that's because I forced my vision to be poor so that I could get glasses because everyone else had them.
Yes. We appreciate that. All right, Huey, you're on.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Huey. I live and serve at a church in Northern Virginia. I've been at this church going on 13 years now, majority of it doing youth ministry in the Asian American context. And Justin and Dorothy are like my top 5 people.
Oh.
So there you go.
Oh, look at that. And do you have glasses?
I wear contacts.
Oh, since when? 6th grade?
Since 9th grade. So it's
okay. So I got both of y'all. I've been wearing glasses since 3rd grade. Back then, all you can do is watch TV on the 4 channels that we had. So rough times, man. All right, so we're on part 2, guys. And if you missed episode 1 or part 1, you got to go back and listen to that. There were some gems from Huey and Dorothy. Do not miss that. And so, but we are on part 2, and what we're kind of trying to do today is we're going to look at the youth ministry position in terms of expectations. And so we're looking at what are some expectations that you should have for the church as you look for a position, and what are some realistic expectations that they should have on you. And so that's where we're going today. I want to start our conversation with a question. It's an icebreaker question, but it can get deep real fast. And so the question is, what's one thing you wish someone told you before your first youth ministry search? Dorothy, I think you're itching to answer this question for sure.
Oh,
let's go.
Yes, super itchy. Actually, I have 2 things, if that's okay, and hopefully not one of them.
No worries.
What Huey's going to say. But the first thing I would actually say is, how do I do my taxes when I go into ministry? Because I was formerly in the marketplace where my employer took care of all that. And then when I entered the ministry space, I looked at my paycheck and I didn't know how to read it. And then let alone when it came time for tax season, I was like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
His TurboTax had so many questions. I just didn't know what numbers to put. But that's probably one very practical thing until someone said a CPA. And I was like,
so aside from the CPA, let's give our audience an actual practical answer to this one.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
How would you answer that for the 2 of you guys? Like what did y'all do when it came to taxes and stuff?
I mean, okay, I did what anyone would do. I called my mom.
Okay.
Because she actually did study some accounting, and she was accounts payable position for a number of years, and she was doing my taxes, I will fully admit, until I moved here. And so some of y'all be chuckling thinking, oh my gosh, that was me too. Or maybe it was your father, or you have a family CPA, or one of your parents is a CPA. But I asked my parents, and then we did a lot of Googling together.
Okay, that's good. Because we want to also be very practical here on the show.
Oh, for sure.
So, I mean, that's one thing you wish someone taught you is, it can't just be taxes. It's the whole broader financial things, your retirement, all these type of things, COLA, everything else. And so we'll get to that shortly, hopefully later.
TurboTax save lives.
Yes. All right, number 2, Dorothy.
The second thing, and this is a little deeper. Well, not little. It's a lot deeper. I wish one question I would have asked is, how does the church actually deal with conflict and confrontation? All right, your turn, Huey.
You'll leave us
You're
hanging.
not,
All right, all
you're
right,
not
all right.
really expound on that at all, huh?
Let's go, Huey. Let's go, Huey.
Yeah, and I think kind of Dorothy kind of began leading us in this way, but I wish somebody told me that I can ask questions. No, just even that. Like ask questions. Because I think when I first began in youth ministry, I just felt like I had to prove myself to the church.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that, it was very one way. But you know what? Like I think it's good to ask questions. Questions about where the church has been. I would ask questions about why did the previous youth pastor director leave? And what was that transition like? I would ask that question. I would ask, um, how does the youth ministry and fit into the life of the church, especially when it comes to the mission and vision and the values of the church? How is it already playing out? You know, I imagine if I'm interviewing with the church, there is perhaps a search committee that consists of students, families, youth leaders, perhaps, and maybe the senior leadership. In their minds, how is the youth ministry fitting into the life of the church as a whole? I would ask questions about like leadership organization pipeline. Like, where does the youth pastor fit into the organizational leadership pipeline? Like, who does the youth pastor director report to? What does supervision look like? What does accountability look like? What are some of the policies and procedures that are in place? Um, when it comes to the youth position and the youth leader, yeah, like ask questions. I think the more you are aware of, and another question of like, how does the youth position fit into the kind of the plans for its future, or how does a youth ministry fit into the future of the church, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, those are some of the questions that I wish I would have asked.
Okay, so I'm going to take that last one, right? Where does the youth ministry fit into, not into the future, right? The longevity, the trajectory of this church. Let's take that one real quick, and the three of us, let's go down that route. What are some questions that can even discern that answer, right? Like, how do you know? And then what are some flags of like, okay, they have not thought this through? What are some ways that we can ask strategically, but also gracefully that question? Where in the world does the youth ministry go as part of the overall future? What are your thoughts?
Dorothy?
I'll jump in.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna answer my own question.
Justin. Why don't you go for
I would say a red flag would be if you ask the question just like Huey asked,
hmm
and they're stumbling or they're just kind of confused on it. I would say that they have not thought it through. And again, this could just be that group. And again, it really depends on strategically who that search committee is made up of, right? Like that would be very, very indicative of how they understand this youth ministry position. But if they have not thought through it, then it could possibly be that they're hiring you to fill a position and not so much a whole long-term trajectory of ministry, right? It's a plug and play position, and you're just one of the means to some kind of end. But that could be that. I'm not saying it has to be, but
hmm
that would be a kind of a red flag for me if they have not even thought through. And again, 5 years, 10 years. And some of my questions would be like, what's the hope in 10 years for your youth ministry to be? And it can't just be for it to survive, right? Or Christians to stay, or youth to stay Christian in college. I'm like, that's such a low bar, man. And it doesn't speak to anything.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Kwame, and I have been serving in youth ministry at Centennial Church in Forest Lake, Minnesota for more than 20 years. I'm also the author of More to the Story, Deep Answers to Real Questions on Attraction, Identity, and Relationships. And I've had the honor to write Rooted's new curriculum on biblical sexuality. It's a 9-week short study that goes through key passages in Scripture about the topic of human sexuality. And our hope and prayer with it is that it would help students to see why their sexuality matters so much and how they can honor God with their bodies and their relationships. We also hope and pray that it is a tool for you as you navigate the tough questions that our students are asking with gospel truth.
As you were commenting on that low bar of just stay Christian in college, I was thinking about a previous prior pre-interview conversation that I had, not with the church with which I am now, but other churches in this area and as well as in Illinois. And I asked that question actually, like, oh, what's your like long-term vision and intention for the youth of your church? And I kid you not, this is an older gentleman who is probably overseas born, but said kind of comically, or maybe he was serious and I misinterpreted his tone, but he said, "Well, that's your job, isn't it?" I was like, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
So I think you're right, Justin, in that there are churches who they just are trying to survive, and that's if I can, speak honestly, not that I would lie to you, I think that's kind of sad that they're just trying to stay above the water, not like actually sail on it. And I I feel for some of those churches because there are a plethora of Chinese churches, and even, to be in solidarity with the Korean community too. There's a lot of small Korean churches out there, in part because they have been like overgrown like Bible studies that became a church, but they had this intention to study the Bible together, but not necessarily knowing how to actually um, become or to grow into a healthy church. And so when it comes to youth ministry and its trajectory within the wider church's schema, I guess is the word that's coming to mind, um, it's not just the youth pastor's job to fix, quote unquote, the students. I think it's a morphing need that a youth pastor is a component of the wider church's nurturing, right? I think family ministry in combination with children's ministry and youth ministry is important because you're not just ministering to the teenager or to a child, but to the parents as well.
Yeah.
So there are just so many dimensions to it, but asking good questions to understand the church and its vision, and is there a realistic and faithful pathway for growth? I'm not sure if that's always the case. I would hate to see any church shut down, but I think that unless those bigger picture questions are answered, it's as the saying goes, like without vision, the
People perish.
and the church will perish.
Yeah, that's right. Huey, you have anything to add to that one? That's awesome, by the way, Dorothy.
Yeah, that's really good. I would ask, well, I mean, I would want to see the way that they talk about youth ministry. Are they just really just referring to students?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they referring to in their families, right? Because like you said, Justin, I would get the impression that they're just hiring to fill a position. It's a plug and play. If their idea of hiring somebody for the youth ministry is just solely just for the students, that's it. But I just think it's getting harder and harder to imagine youth ministry as just student ministry. I think it's got to be broader.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a sense of collaboration amongst, like you said, Dorothy, children's ministry, college, young adults, but particularly parents. So are they, in the way that they come up with the job description, in the way that they talk about youth ministry, are they willing to kind of expand just from students? That's kind of your primary audience, but you also actually have a wider audience that you're trying to partner with. And are they mindful of that? And in addition to that, if that's the case, then I think, what are the spaces that the leadership is going to invite you into for dialogue and conversation to dream about the future? So you're not just limited to, your youth leaders, your core team, and some few parents, but you're invited to higher level leadership conversations, because to me, that signals that the church is mindful that youth ministry is dynamic and it's progressing. So they are part of the future. They're part of the plans. They're part of the growth, not just something that hopefully passively just kind of happens. So what are the spaces is the youth director, youth pastor being invited into, like session meetings for certain, denominations, or, what are the conversations that you get to have with other coworkers, pastors, or what, depending on church's structure, right? What are the conversations and spaces are you being invited into
Right.
advocate for youth ministry and youth families?
Okay, so that's brilliant. I think what you said at the very end was key. It's not just can I be the quote unquote glorified babysitter, but where can I be the advocate for this ministry? And I think where a lot of if you guys are listening and you're thinking about this maybe for the first time, or you want this to be part of your life, what we, the three of us, have experienced, and a lot of other youth ministers, a lot of times it's not just can you do program A, B, and C,
Right.
but it's really who are you in light of the vision direction of the church. And I think that's massive. It's, do you have a seat at the table? Not saying that you need to own the table, but do they recognize you as a valued member that can contribute? And so back to Dorothy, your point is maybe these smaller monoethnic churches, they don't know what it looks like, but they're willing to learn, right? Or they're willing to bring you in to be like, I need help. Can you do this? And that's a humility posture,
Oh yeah.
which is super key. But on the other hand, if they're not welcome for feedback, or they get defensive, or they start to gaslight or whatever else like that, those are some kind of like, okay, then it gets to Huey's point of, all right, you're just there to do your thing, get out of our way, and let us dictate what is best for you guys, right? And so I would say to the listener, just be aware that these happen. Now, again, we're painting in very broad strokes. There's a lot of different nuances, and wisdom and patience always wins out the day in these thought process. But we have to kind of do our due diligence to be able to ask these type of questions. Moving forward, what are some, in your experience, what are some expectations, whether spoken or unspoken, do Asian American churches typically put on the youth pastor? We've kind of mentioned it on a high level, but do you remember?
Well, real quick, I do want to go back to the point you just made about the humility that is necessary for a church to ask for help. And it's like, we're coming to you and we want to hire you, not just to plug and play, but because we want to grow in vision and grow in what it means and how it looks for a church to be healthy. But at the same time, and I'm just speaking for myself, it's important for our friends out there that you have a measure of self-awareness to know how you can receive feedback as well. And I say that where I have not always been the most gracious at receiving feedback, even if it's in like the gentlest, squishmallow, soft, palm pals kind of a feel. I think if the heart is not yielding, or is not in a position and posture to actually receive that which may be constructive, it, it could cause tensions, right? Even in the hiring process, let alone being on staff with people. So that is a part where compatibility or chemistry does play a role in hiring. Is like, is this a team or a pastoral staff that I not only get along with, but we can walk together and we can talk about harder things without feeling threatened by each other. So I just want to put that out too. Yeah.
Okay. We'll circle back to that question. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Huey, going. I'm going to ask you that question. Is what were some expectations do you think a lot of churches, Asian American ones in specifically, that they put on youth pastors, whether spoken or unspoken?
Lay it on thick.
Tell us from your world.
I think maybe one thing, and I really don't think it's malicious, but coming from a very community oriented kind of sacrificial kind of a posture, I feel like the church leadership can expect the youth pastors and directors to um, underestimate the importance of your personal growth over church's sustainability and church's health.
Mm.
Like your growth as a pastor, your growth as a minister of the gospel is always subservient to overall church's health.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think it's malicious. I don't think it's intentional, but your growth is always secondary to the church's health. And I'm not sure if that's helpful in the long run for anybody that's involved.
Yeah.
To be honest. But yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why, at least in the Asian American churches, youth pastors don't last very long.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
No, I think we can definitely resonate with that, can't we? And so, and I would just add also, a lot of this could be generational, right? First gen, man, they built this thing from the ground up, from scratch.
Yeah.
And I think as the generations get older, younger, as new youth ministers jump in, there has to be a level of respectability for what the older generations lay down.
Absolutely.
But then there also has to be good, healthy communications from both sides of like, hey, what's the real core things about ministry and how can we pass on from generation to generation? Like there's no future for the church if they don't have these type of conversations. And so going back to your point, Dorothy, it has to come with humility to be received in both sides.
We are thrilled to announce Rooted's new book with New Growth Press, The Jesus I Wish I Knew in High School, Asian American Edition. Being a teenager is itself an overwhelming experience, but the struggles unique to Asian American teenagers can often lead them to wonder if anyone truly knows what they're going through. In this book, 12 authors come alongside Asian American students to share their own high school experiences, helping students to see how Jesus makes a difference in our unique struggles. Jesus sees them and knows them fully. These testimonies of growing up Asian American include struggles with belonging, performance pressure, fear of failure, living in an honor-shame culture, eating disorders, sexual assault, and adoption. The writers now walk faithfully with Jesus in their ethnic and cultural distinctions. These stories lift up the Asian American experience with dignity, offering representation and belonging. We hope you'll read this book and share it with the Asian American teenagers in your home or church.
Okay, we have a couple more. Time is running out. This is crazy because we have so much to do. Dorothy, help us when we're looking at the job description paper, right, or the websites or whatever it might be. What are some things that we should be looking for? What are some things that if they're not there, we can add in as we ask healthy questions in terms of expectations? So help us walk through the application process as in terms of the job description.
It's been a while since I've applied for a ministry job, but we'll need to get refreshed on that soon. A few things are like, what are the qualifications, but sometimes I've actually been part of search committees looking for youth pastors in a previous context, and the initial job description was 3 pages long because it was very much as detailed as you could make it, and so it had to be trimmed, or we said we cut the fat to try to make it maybe 1 page or 1.5 pages, and even still, like, it was a lot because even though you may see a summation of an online posting or a PDF or equivalent of the job description, there's probably one line in there that may say, the above is a summary of, but not limited to, the responsibilities that may be imparted to the youth pastor position. I'm just like, so in other words, this is not the full job description, right? And one of those things, right, when you're looking at a posting, and then asking questions is like, can you be more specific on what that means? Aside from just the qualifications, is like, what is the number of hours that are actually worked? And let's be real, right? Even as we have been in ministry positions for as long as we have, the reality is that you will probably work more than 40 hours a week. And that's not to, diminish other professions who may work, 80 to 90 hours a week, especially if you're in finance and adjacents. But that being a person who is not married, I think that my flexibility for ministry is much higher because I have fewer responsibilities in the home and I'm not immediately with my own clan relatives and family. So I'm really just here for the job, right? So if anyone is thinking of moving, relocating, or you're looking for a job near your family, I think it's important to assess that while a job description may tell you what it entails, you really have to think about your time, like how much time are you going to be commuting, or how much time are you able to spend with your family? Sidebar, one should never sacrifice their family for the sake of ministry. I just want to be very clear about that because
Another podcast.
that is not,
That's awesome.
there it is, because that is not serving your family. You cannot make your family a sacrificial lamb for the sake of the gospel, because Jesus did not ask us per se to neglect our families. Again, another conversation for another time. But I think that job description, it's good to have follow-up, and even the salary or the compensation they may offer. Is there benefits? Is there going to be health insurance, or are you having to find and pay for your own health insurance? Is there a guarantee of mentorship or discipleship? And again, I'm in a context where it's a community-oriented culture, and yet even as I am a female in ministry, there's not a lot of females whom I've encountered who would be as much willing as available to mentor me, because I have been told like, oh, I'm not in ministry, so I don't really know how I can mentor you. And so I've had to seek out other spaces or create them for myself to receive that. Right. So that's not going to be what's in the job description, but know that like, even if you can do the job, like, is this a place where you feel like you can grow, let alone grow old? And what are the real costs and the real benefits, not just the practical, but also like to your mental, emotional, spiritual health. And will you be supported in the role, not just asked to support others?
Yeah, that's so good. And I would say, as you continue to ask those questions, listeners, in the job description that Dorothy just said, do the people who are in the search committee or in the leadership, do they understand even kind of the role and context of youth ministry, right? It might say, hey, you're supposed to be responsible for going to camps, but do they realize those are multiple 24-hour,
oh my gosh,
responsibilities? Yeah, and again, I'm like, how do you measure that? And so if they have no concept of youth ministry, how does that factor into not only your overall well-being, but also compensation and time off and accommodations and stuff? And so, Dorothy, gold. I appreciate it.
Just some depth,
Yeah. Huey, I'm gonna leave the last question to you because, got it. When do you ask about compensation? I have not seen a posting, and it has any Asian American ones for sure, has nothing to do with salary or compensation. I mean, I don't know about where y'all are at, but it's all about what you should be doing for the church. Yeah. And there's almost no benefit, for the pastor. You know what I mean? It's a job description, and maybe that's just how it's written, but is it wrong to ask for compensation? Is it wrong to ask for, benefits? What's your take, man?
Yeah, I think there isn't like I haven't seen like a formal process or something in writing as to like when is appropriate to ask that. I've seen mixed over the years. I've seen job postings that state like, salary compensation is to be determined, commensurate with experience. I've seen that. I've seen applications where there is a range. They put a range on it. I've seen that a few times, but I think maybe more practical and personal way to kind of approach that is with, I don't think before you even get to like even like a wider search committee, if that's a conversation that you can have with the lead pastor and maybe a representative of the session or the elders, depending on what denomination you're coming from, or if your church has an HR committee, if there can be a space with a smaller, group that represents the church and especially the finances, I would ask questions about how healthy is the giving of the church, right? And I would also ask, what are the what can I expect to be compensated, right? But in a very again, I don't think that belongs in more of a wider search committee kind of a process. I think before you get to a search committee, because to me, by the time you get to a search committee, you're meeting with the search committee for the actual job. But I think your compensation and all that conversation needs to happen before that you talk about the actual job. So that's just kind of my understanding of it all. But I don't know if that's helpful or not. But
No, it's good. I mean, because again, in youth ministry, we're just taught to just take the position, and then the Lord will give us our treasures in heaven, right? That's the joke. But I mean, I think in order to be a position, I'm like, let's work hard, but also understand that this is part of our livelihood as well, and so it's not wrong. And I think if anything in these last two episodes, ask questions. The more clarity there is up front, the less confusion there could be at the end. And so and again, this is a sacrifice. It is it's one of the best things you can do to minister and shepherd God's people. But I mean, you're gonna give, and so just kind of keep those in mind. Man, there's a lot more we can talk about. Friends, thank you guys for contributing your thoughts and your personal experiences and even just some of your pain points too. And so I appreciate the two of you guys more than you'll ever know. But listeners, thank you guys for tuning in with us. This has been the Rooted Asian American Youth Ministry Roundtable. We have so much more resources to offer you guys, our cohorts, curriculum online. Check out our Instagram at The Rooted Ministry for updates and resources. But you can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We pray blessings for you guys. We cannot wait to see what the next generation of youth ministers look like. We have such high hopes for you guys to ask hard questions and care about the local church as well. If this is helpful, this conversation, what will be even more helpful is to talk with us in person at the Rooted Conference that'll be coming up in person. You get to meet Huey and Dorothy. You can pick their brains.
And Justin.
No, you get their autographs and stuff. You want theirs. And so, yeah, it'll be coming in the fall. Registration should be open soon.
It's already open.
It's already open. You're late now. Spots are limited because they want to meet Huey and Dorothy. So make sure you guys register and join us as we'll sing, worship, and train together for the gospel in our local churches. And so we thank you guys for tuning in. We will talk to you next time. All right. See you.